What is up, guys? My name is Lex. Welcome back to the vlog. We are here on a Saturday night at Texas Card House. This place is packed. So many tables, 1, 2, 2, 5, 5, 10 PLO tournaments, all sorts of action here. So to update you guys, I was here Thursday night, just 2 nights ago. I made a vlog. I ended up losing $4,000 playing 2-5. One of the biggest losses of my poker career at 2-5. Big punt there with just ace jack, one pair. Hope you guys watched that video. But the very next day, yesterday, I came in here, played a 5, 10, 20 straddle game, bought in for $5,000, cashed out for over $10,000, ended up winning $5,000 yesterday. So Thursday, 2 days ago, lost $4,000. Yesterday, won $5,000. Crazy poker swing so far, but we are here on a Saturday night. Gonna be playing some 5, 10, 20 straddle game, buying it for $4,000. Let's see how the night goes. Let's get to the table, let's get to the action. Let's go. I hope you guys are ready for a crazy first hand. Texas Card House, 5, 10, 20. We have pocket fours. There's an under the gun raise to 50. We make the call. The button puts in a 3-bet. He makes it $200. The big blind cold calls $200. Initial raiser folds. And given this price, I am pretty deep with both players. I make the call as well. The button is not a professional player, so I feel like when he 3-bets here to $200, he has jacks, queens, kings, and aces. So when the flop comes out, 3, 5, 4, 2 diamonds, we flop a set. My heart rate immediately jacks up. My adrenaline is pumping. I check it over to the button, who puts out a bet. He makes it big, $400. The button has over $6,000 in his stack. Whenever he c-bets $400 on this board, I'm pretty sure he has an overpair, which is amazing because we flopped a sneaky set of fours. The big blind actually calls $400, which is even better. If the big blind folded, I might be tempted to slow play my pocket fours here, but with the big blind calling, I am definitely going to be putting in a raise. I feel like I have both of my opponents crushed here, so I don't want to go too big to let them hero fold some of their pairs, so I decide on around a 4x raise here. I make it $1,500, and now the action is back on the button.
JPW, do you want 1-3? 1-3? Table 23.
The button only thinks for about 10 seconds and decides to go all in for over $6,000. The big blind then goes into the tank. Looks like he's got a tough decision here. He cold called a 3-bet, so I expect him to have some overpairs here, maybe some 9s, 10s, possibly some ace-x of diamonds hands that he's thinking about. I'm actually rooting for the big blind to fold. I don't really want him to call it off here with maybe an ace-x of diamonds hand that has a lot of equity. He thinks for a while, over a minute, and decides to let his hand go. We obviously make the snap call. When the button 3-bets pre-flop and shoves all in on this flop, I put him on aces, kings, ace-x of diamonds, or king-x of diamonds. So we're looking to fade an ace, a deuce, a king, or a diamond. Heads up here, all in for over $8,000 in the middle. Let's see if we can hold.
Wow, what a chance.
What do you have?
Oh, fuck. Jesus Christ.
What a turn. We get one of the worst possible turn cards, the ace of diamonds. If my opponent had a flush draw or aces, he got there. I was not feeling good about the situation until he showed pocket kings. We are good. We're going to be doubling up here, winning over an $8,000 pot. Wow, what a turnaround from just our vlog 2 days ago. This is pretty amazing. Already starting out our session up over $4,000 now.
Didn't see that one coming. I thought you were done.
Yeah, I actually thought you had aces, and the turn, I'm like, oh, the worst turn in the deck. This will be a good first hand, huh? Just one shuffle later, my hands are still shaking from the adrenaline from the last hand. We look down at pocket jacks, raise it up to $75, folds all the way back around to the under the gun straddler who makes the call. So we're heads up here to a queen high board. When he checks it over to me, I put out a c-bet. I bet $60, and under the gun player makes the call, going to the turn, which is the jack of clubs, making another set here, but the flush does get there. When he checks it over to me, I feel like I can go pretty big here, trying to get called by all queen X hands, maybe king queen with the king of clubs, or possibly queen 10 with the 10 of clubs. So I bet pretty big here. I make it $225. My opponent snap folds. I am still on a high from that first hand. We flopped a set and ended up getting it all in to win a massive pot. What a huge turnaround just from 2 days ago. We ended up losing over $4,000 in one session, and now we got all that money back and more. The session is starting out pretty good. The table is deep. The action is good. Let's move on to the next hand. In this hand, the $20 straddle is not on, so there's 2 limps for $10. I have ace 10 of diamonds on the button, a beautiful hand, want to be raising this one up, so I make it $75, and now the small blind, the same player with pocket kings from 2 hands ago, puts in a min 3 bet. He makes it $150. One of the limpers make the call, and I make the call as well. The dealer gives us a pretty good flop here. It's ace 5 7 1 diamond. The small blind decides to c-bet $250 on this board. The limper makes the call, and I feel like on this board, I don't think a raise is good. I don't think a fold is good either, so that leaves one option, and that is to call. I'm a little concerned that the small blind might have ace king or ace queen, but when the turn card comes out, the king of diamonds now giving us a flush draw, and the small blind checks it over to the under the gun player, and he ends up checking it over to me. I feel pretty good about this hand. I have top pair and the nut flush draw. My hand doesn't need too much protection, so I decide to check this one back. I check back this turn for a couple reasons. One is to induce a bluff by the small blind or the under the gun player thinking that I'm weak on the river, and 2 is to potentially pot control if the small blind has ace queen or slow playing ace king or pocket kings, and also 3, there's not many hands I can get value from that are worse than mine, possibly like ace 9 or ace 8, but I don't think either of my opponents is going to have that. So when the deuce of spades comes out on the river and the small blind leads out for $600, I'm not buying this play. When the small blind leads out for such a large sizing on this river, his hand doesn't make too much sense. I guess he could possibly have pocket kings that he checked on the turn, which seems pretty unlikely. Maybe he could be going for this sizing with ace queen or ace jack, but I don't see why he wouldn't just bet that on the turn. So when the under the gun player makes the fold, we have a pretty easy snap call.
Oh. You got ace.
I have ace. When I make the call for $600, the small blind is pretty hesitant to show his hand, which most likely means I have the best hand. So I show the ace 10 and it is good. He eventually ends up mucking. We are 3 for 3 so far, running hot this session, almost up $5,000. We are only 1 hour in our session and our stack is upwards of $9,000. Let's keep running good. Let's move on to the next hand. Playing with a $20 straddle under the gun in this hand, there's a $50 open from early position. I have ace 10 of clubs, could be 3-betting here, but I decide to just make the call, and the straddler makes the call as well. So 3 ways to the flop, which we make middle pair, backdoor flush draw on a queen high board. I check, under the gun checks, and now the initial raiser puts out a $75 bet. This is kind of a close call between fold and call, but I have a pair, backdoor flush draw, so I make the call. Under the gun calls as well. We do improve on the turn, which is the 10 of hearts, but it does bring in the front door flush. I check, and it checks all the way around. The river is a brick, and now I decide to go for a thin value. We can assume when the under the gun +1 player checks back the flop that we have the best hand here a lot of the time, so I put out a bet of $115, really trying to target those queen X 1-pair hands, possibly over pairs like kings and aces or maybe pocket jacks. Under the gun straddler decides to make the call and the other player folds. We show ace 10 for trips, and my opponent shows 4 deuce of hearts for a flush, which is going to beat our hand. Lost a little bit back in that hand, but it could have been a lot worse, trips versus a flush. No straddle in this hand. I have ace, queen of clubs in the big blind facing a cutoff raise to $40. I decide to 3-bet here to $150, and my opponent makes a call. Jack, 5, 7, 1 club. I think it's a pretty good board here to c-bet on. I can continue on a lot of turn cards such as a queen, a king, an ace, or any club. So I put out a bet of $130, and my opponent makes a call. The turn card is the 8 of hearts, and this is one of those cards that I'm not going to continue to bluff on. This particular player had been playing pretty tight, pretty snug, so I put him on a pretty strong hand. I don't want to just continue to barrel away here with just ace high, no equity, so I check and give up, and my opponent bets $400. We fold. We've lost a couple $100 from our peak, but let's get it back with pocket aces in the cutoff. The hijack player, a very tight pro, makes it $35. We are next to act and 3-bet to $125. Folds all the way back around to him who decides to fold. No more action here with pocket aces. So far on this table, every single flop was going 3 or 4 ways, so to not get any action with pocket aces feels like a crime, but the dealer makes up for it the very next hand when we look down at pocket kings, raise it up to $35. The button calls, small blind calls, and then the big blind puts in a 3-bet. He makes it $130. The player in the big blind and I have been fairly friendly with each other since I've been here in Dallas. He watches the vlog, and I actually don't think he's doing this very light. I feel like he's got a pretty strong hand of jacks plus, possibly some suited broadways or ace king, but with all that being said, we have pocket kings, the second best hand ever created, so we're going to put in a 4-bet. I settle on a sizing of $375 4-bet, and to my surprise, the player on the button who just called my $35 raise calls my $375 4-bet. The small blind folds, and now the action is back on the big blind. The big blind ultimately decides to call. If he had put in a 5-bet, I'm not sure what I would do here with pocket kings. We end up going 3 ways in a 4-bet pot. You gotta love Texas poker. The board comes out queen, 9-4, 2 hearts. This flop is good, and it's kind of bad. It's good because there's no ace on the board, but it's bad because in a 4-bet pot with 2 players calling, I feel like they're going to have a lot of pocket pairs here, pocket 9s, 10s, jacks, and queens, and there's a queen and a 9 on the board, so it's possible that my opponents could have flopped a set on me. There's only one way to find out. I put out a bet of $450. If one of my opponents raises me, I will be in a gross spot, but I could probably hero fold here. Not many players are going to be putting in a raise in a 4-bet pot on this board. The button folds and the big blind snap calls my $450 bet. Heads up now with over $2,000 in the middle. The turn card is the deuce of hearts, bringing in that front door flush. Not the best card. I don't have the king of hearts in my hand, so my opponent can have ace king of hearts, possibly king jack of hearts, any of those combos there. So when he checks to me, I decide to pot control here and check this one back. At the time, I didn't think I could get 3 streets of value from a worse hand in a 4-bet pot, which is why I checked, but I actually like a smaller bet of maybe $500 or $600 here. Going to the river, the last card here in this huge bloated pot, which is a king, but it's a king of hearts. We end up making a set, but there's now 4 hearts on the board. This board has just gotten worse and worse. We did river a set, but now any heart makes a flush. I don't think I can be going for value here on the river. Not many hands will call me that are worse than mine, and I don't think I should turn my hand into a bluff. I feel like this player is just going to call me with any heart in his hand, so I decide to check back, and he shows king queen for 2 pair. I show pocket kings for a set. A pretty tilting run out there. I feel like if the river was a brick, I probably could have got another street of value, maybe a $500, $600, or $700 bet, but cannot complain. Look at all these chips going in our direction. Just a few hands later, we are in the under the gun position. Raise it to $35 with ace, 6 of spades. A pretty loose play here, but we are 7-handed. I want to get in there with a lot of hands. We get 3-bet by a middle position player to $100, and for that sizing, I am definitely not going to be folding, but I do have to tread lightly against this player. He had been playing pretty passive pre-flop. The run good continues when we flop trips on 3, 6, 6 rainbow. I check it over to my opponent who looks like he wants to c-bet, but he decides to check this one back. When my opponent 3-bets pre-flop and checks back this flop, I feel like he's got a lot of ace-high hands, so when the turn is a 9 of spades, I feel like any bet I make, he will just fold, but if he happens to have an overpair that he was slow playing and trapping, I want to try to get max value from that hand, so I put out an over pot-size bet of $275, and he snap folds. We end up taking down another pot. A few players are away from the table, so we're only 5-handed now. In a straddle pot, I decide to open up the button with ace-3 offsuit. The big blind makes the call, and the straddler makes the call as well. So 3 ways to a board of king 7-3. With bottom pair here, when it checks to me, I decide to continue for a $100 bet. The big blind makes the call, and under the gun straddler makes the fold. Ace on the turn, giving us 2 pair, running hot, and the big blind is just done with his hand. He open folds, so we end up taking down another pot here. This next hand is pretty interesting when we have ace-7 of clubs in the small blind. Straddle pot, I make it $80. Only the under the gun player makes the call. We're heads up to ace-10, 3, 2 diamonds. I decide to check here with a middling ace, trying to balance out my checking range. My opponent bets $125, and I call. The turn is a 6 of diamonds, bringing in that diamond flush draw. I check, and now he continues to bet for $250, and now he's repping a fairly narrow range. He's saying that he was betting with a flush draw on the flop, and now he got there on the turn, and small blind versus straddle, only 5-handed. I'm not going to be folding an ace just yet the way I played it, so I make the call going to the river, which is a 7. We end up making 2 pair. I check it over to my opponent for a 3rd time, who does continue to bet, but he bets the same sizing that he used on the turn, $250, and it's a pretty interesting spot here. I think folding 2 pair on this board is out of the question. Now, should we call or should we raise? If my opponent bet bigger on the river, I would just check call, but facing this $250 bet, it just doesn't feel that strong to me. I think I can still get value from worse 2 pairs like ace-3, possibly 6-3, maybe ace-6, so I put in a value check raise, a smaller raise of $600, and my opponent very quickly makes the call. I announce 2 pair, and he says, better 2 pair. He shows ace-10 offsuit. A nasty river for us. I guess we're not going to run pure this entire session. Getting cooler, 2 pair under 2 pair, but let's move on to the last hand of the night. Early position raised to $35. I have king four of clubs on the button and decide to call. I like to play a lot of hands in position, so the button is where I'm going to be playing the widest range of hands. We end up flopping the nut flush draw on an ace high board. My opponent continues for $60 and we make the call. Turn card is the 10 of hearts. Doesn't improve our hand at all, and my opponent does not let off the gas. He continues to bet here a pretty big sizing of $225, and I do not want to fold. I want to see the river here with my nut flush draw. We have about $3,000 effective with each other, so if I hit a flush, I could win a pretty big pot, so I make the call. With 30 minutes left in our session, we are looking to make a flush here. The dealer puts out the river, which is a 10, but it's not the 10 of clubs. We totally brick here. We are left with just king high. If my opponent bets, I will be snap folding, but surprisingly, he checks. I am not going to be bluffing on this river card, so I decide to check this one back. He shows queen jack of hearts for queen high. We show king four of clubs for king high, which is going to do it. We end up taking down our last pot here. That is going to be it for this session. We end up racking up our chips, heading to the cage and cashing out for the night. All right, guys, that is it for this one. What a huge session. 5, 10, 20 here. Ended up playing like a little over 3 hours. Ended up cashing out $9,500 for a profit of $5,500. I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about a couple other things that have been on my mind lately, but it's cold out here. It's probably not the best part of town to be hanging out, talking outside to the camera. So I'm going to wait till I get back home. I'll see you guys then. All right, so there is one thing I do want to talk about. So while I've been here in Dallas, I played on 4 live streams so far, and on the live streams, you can see all the statistics that you have during that 4-hour period. You can see all the hands you play, how many times you put money in the pot, how many times your hand went to showdown, how much you win, how much you lose. And with those statistics, people are commenting in the comments, YouTube chat, all these things that Lexo Poker's a nit. Lexo Poker's tight, he's boring, all these kind of things. And I kind of want to talk about this subject a little bit. I identify as a tight, aggressive player. I don't think that I'm a nit. And the difference between a nit and a tight, aggressive player is that a tight, aggressive player opens up their playing range as they get closer to the button. So I play very, very tight from under the gun 1, because I have a lot of people behind me that still have to act. But if I'm in the cutoff and the button, I play a wide range of hands. A nit only plays a certain amount of hands no matter where they're at on the table. They don't play small suited connectors. They play pocket 10s plus, ace king suited, ace queen suited. That's what a nit plays. So you're never going to see a nit have pocket 7s from under the gun that he raises. You're not going to see a nit play ace 3 suited. You're not going to see a nit play 4-6 suited. They just don't play those hands. But however, if I'm in the cutoff, the hijack, the button, I will raise those hands. I will 3-bet with suited connectors, with suited aces, all those things. So I know I don't really have to get on here and explain myself, but I do think it is a topic that should be discussed. The difference between a nit and a tight aggressive player. And there is a big difference. Obviously, a nit is just not someone you want to be playing in the game with. They're not going to be bluffing. They're not going to be ever getting out of line. They're only going to be raising the nuts. And a tight aggressive player will re-raise you sometimes with 8 high. He'll throw in some bluffs. He'll make some check raises. He'll 3-bet light out of the small blind. Those are the kind of players you want to be playing against. So the other thing too is that I've only played like 12 hours or 16 hours on stream, and I've actually ran very, very slow on the stream. Like hardly picked up any hands. I think I flopped 1 set in 16 hours. Haven't really won any big pots, so there's not much you can do if you're running slow on the stream, but I felt like it was something I wanted to talk about. But now that that's out of the way, what a great session tonight. Up $10,000 in the last 2 days. A huge turnaround from the bad bad loss we had just 2 days ago in vlog number 61. But on a 10K upswing, hopefully it goes up, 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 and keeps going. Big announcement, December 1st, San Antonio at Rounders, my first ever meetup game. If you guys want to come out, come show your face, come play some poker. It's going to be a lot of fun. Starting at 6 p.m., 1-2, 1-2-5, all that good stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like, subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, I'll see you.